In this video, I'm going to teach you how to construct a pair of parallel lines. Now I'm going to do it two ways. I'm going to start with my favorite method, which is this method that I'm calling by corresponding angles. And I'm just going to give you a thought first before I get started. Do you remember that if you had a pair of parallel lines, so assuming you knew that two lines were parallel, and you cut them with a transversal, do you remember that corresponding angles are congruent? The two angles that are in the same corresponding position are the same measure. So I'm going to use this concept right here of these two angles being congruent to create my two parallel lines. Here I go. I'm going to start with a line. You will probably be given a line already, and you're supposed to construct a line parallel to it. So I'm going to give myself a line to work with. And I'm going to give myself something, a point, that my parallel line is supposed to pass through. Because a lot of times you want your parallel line in a certain spot. So let's suppose I put my dot, right there. My point. I want you to make a prediction first so you can envision it. You know that the line that is parallel to the original line has to go through that point. So that means we have to involve this point in some way. Well, the start of this construction is going to be me constructing a transversal. So I'm going to first draw a transversal going through this point and through my original line. This is going to give me my angle, or one of my two angles that are going to be considered corresponding to each other. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to copy this angle right here up to this location, mimicking this idea right here, copying that angle up there, and I'm going to do it using that construction of copying or duplicating an angle. So I'm going to take my compass center, put it on this point of intersection. I'm going to swing an arc. I'm going to take that very same arc, not changing the span of my compass, put the center now on the point, swing an arc about the same size. Do you see the makings of a duplicate angle? Now I'm going to measure how far apart these two sides are for this angle. I say measure what the opening is of this angle, how wide open the angle is, by putting my compass center on the point of intersection and my pencil on the point of intersection, and then literally take it up. If I was going to use my mathematical terminology, I'd say I was translating my compass, putting the center on the only point of intersection I have, and swing an arc. This arc mimics the opening of my original angle. So when I connect this point of intersection to that dot, to that point, I should have a pair of parallel lines. This line right here, I'll call it line L, is parallel to line M. And the symbols we use, we say something like line L is parallel to line M. I think I might mark it in my picture as well. This little triangular mark and this little triangular mark will indicate that those two lines are parallel. I constructed these two lines parallel to each other using the idea of corresponding angles. And the second way you could do parallel lines is by perpendiculars. So I want to show you that one as well. Because you'll develop your own style, you'll develop your favorite method, and probably stick with it every time you do a construction of parallel lines. Like the previous one was my favorite, this is another one, not my favorite, but it works. So I want you to think about this. Hopefully you remember what perpendicular lines are. So I want you to think as I draw. If I have a line, I'll call it line A. And if I have a second line, I'll call it line B. And I know that line B is perpendicular to A. Then I draw a third line, calling it line C, and line C is perpendicular to B. Would it then make sense that since A was perpendicular to B and C was perpendicular to B, that A and C should be parallel? I hope that logic makes sense because that's the logic I'm going to use for this next construction. So I'm going to start by giving myself a line. I want to construct another line parallel to this one, and the way I'm going to do it is to construct a perpendicular first. So I'm going to give myself a dot, a point of reference that I'll use for my perpendicular, or sorry, for my parallel lines, parallel line to go through. It's also going to be the point of reference that I use to construct my perpendicular. So hopefully you remember that construction. Right now I'm constructing a line perpendicular to my given line. I start by drawing an arc. I should say swinging an arc. This arc gives me 2 points of reference that are equally distant from that point. From these 2 points of reference, I'm going to be constructing another pair of mini arcs. Notice I haven't changed my compass setting. That sometimes just makes life easier. Then I'm going to draw a line connecting this point of intersection to this point that I gave myself a few minutes ago. So that purple line is perpendicular to this black line. Let's call this line A. Let's call this one line B, so I can keep talking about these two lines with respect to their names, A and B. All right, now I constructed a perpendicular to A. Now I want to construct a perpendicular to B. Now some students find it helpful to turn their paper and do that same construction I just did, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep it oriented the same way. So I'm going to take this point, this is going to now be my point of reference. I'm going to swing, actually, hey, watch this. Since I haven't changed my compass setting, watch how convenient it's going to be if I were to just have created or constructed or swung a full circle. Don't need it, but I just want to show you something. If I had kept going with that original arc, see this full circle? The reason that's kind of convenient right now is because I needed 2 points that were equally distant from this point. I'm going to call that, I think I'll draw an arrow to it so you know what I'm talking about. This point right here and that point, which I really can't see yet, I need to extend line B a bit. Those are going to be my 2 points of reference that are equally distant from that point right there. So from those 2 points of reference, this one and this one, I'm going to open my compass a little further so I can not clutter my construction with too many arcs. So I'm just opening it wider just to, like I said, keep my construction a little cleaner. I'm going to construct an arc out to the right from that point of reference. Take my compass center, put it on that point of reference, where this circle meets my line B. See where these two arcs met? If I line up that point of intersection with my point, I will have constructed yet another pair of parallel lines. This is by perpendiculars. So I'll say line A is parallel to line C, and I did it by constructing line B.